Okay, and we're recording here. So good night, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My apologies for being a little late to this to starting tonight. We are just a few days from the final election day on November 3rd, and millions of Americans have already voted. In New York, I know that 1 million people had voted even before early voting day. They had mailed in their absentee ballots. As of today, hundreds of thousands of people have been lining up, and it happens to be raining in New York today. People are standing in the rain waiting to vote. And so we know, and we're going to hear from our panelists. We have Senator Roxanne Persaud, who is here in Brooklyn. And fortunately, we live in, fingers crossed, a safely blue state. But our two guests and friends of ours are in swing states. So we have Sabrina Somra Kelly, and she is of Guyanese origin, as am I, and as is Senator Persaud, and she's from Georgia. Georgia is a swing state. And we have Denise Babulal, who's also, she's of Trinidadian descent, and she's in Fort Lauderdale in Florida. And for viewers at home, the total Guyanese and Trinidadian population in this country as a national statistic, a national number, it is relatively small. Together, it's about 1.5% of the total US population. But we know that in some states, for example, in New York, the Guyanese and Trinidadian population is significant. In New York City, it's the third largest immigrant group. We also know that in elections like this, very small numbers can make a difference. And that's why it's so important. And that's why I'm so glad that our panelists have agreed to do this forum where we're mobilizing our community to come out and to come out for Biden and Harris. So I'm going to turn it over to our panelists so they can introduce themselves. And we'll start with the distinguished Honorable Senator Roxanne Persaud, who is a senator in Brooklyn.
Well, good evening, everyone. Richard, thanks for convening us on this important topic. I am Roxanne Persaud, the senator representing the 19th Senatorial District in Brooklyn. And yes, I was born in Georgetown, Guyana. And, I always talk about my GT people. So it is great that we're having this conversation to encourage Guyanese to come out, because too often they do not come out and participate in our communities. We just completed the census, and a large population of Guyanese did not complete the census. And you hear the reasons why they give you for not participating in things in the community, which absolutely makes no sense to me, and that's my personal opinion. The census is important. Voting is also important. I think she's saying she's not hearing me, but are you all hearing me?
It's low. It's low. I'm hearing you, but it's very low.
Not sure why, because I'm speaking slowly. Are you hearing me now?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So, again, I'm concerned about the turnout. The same way I was concerned in the last election when I was speaking to many Guyanese about voting, and they were hesitant to vote for Hillary Clinton, and many of them said they were voting for the current person who's occupying the White House, and that's the truth. And we're still encountering that, and they'll tell you, oh, it's a business person, but we see what the business person has not done for our community. So again, I thank all of you for being on this panel this evening so that we can discuss this very important election.
Thank you, Senator Persaud. And let's go to our trouble state, our true swing, the swingest state of them all. Let's go to Florida. Denise, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us your role in your community in Fort Lauderdale.
Right. I'm Denise Babulal. I'm the founding director of the only Indo-Caribbean arts and culture organization nonprofit in the United States, but I'm also the former campaign manager for Senator Daphne Campbell. And then before that, I was also the campaign manager for Hubert Campbell, state representative. Currently, I'm the executive director of nonprofit consultant for the City of Pompano Unity in the Community nonprofit organization. And basically, my main role here, also having a lot of political affiliates, is to just get our people to vote. Our number one issue with Caribbean people, especially Indo-Caribbean, is to get them to go out and vote. They don't like to participate, they don't like to go out and vote. So, but getting out there and pushing them to go out, it's one of the key things that, it doesn't matter who you vote for, whether you vote for Trump or Biden, we're hoping Biden, but to make sure just get out there and vote and let our voice be heard for our little community.
Thank you. And it's true, Denise does a tremendous amount of work with Indo-Caribbean communities and from Suriname even, but a lot of Guyanese and Trinidadians in Florida. And you're right, we all know somebody who, and we've had this argument with somebody in our family or our friends who are, I'm going to say that they're unsure, but they're pretty sure. They seem pretty sure. So tonight we're going to make the case. We've heard it all, and we have to make the case about why we believe that the Biden-Harris ticket stands the greatest promise for prosperity for the Guyanese Trinidadian immigrant community in the United States. So let's go to Georgia. Sabrina, looking absolutely beautiful. Please introduce yourself. Tell us what's going on in Georgia. I know y'all have a storm.
Hi, Richard. Hi, everybody. Denise, Roxanne. I feel like a delegate tonight, honestly. Everyone, my name is Sabrina Summer Kelly, and of course, I am Guyanese born. I've been living in Georgia for about 17 years. And I want to piggyback on what our colleague and my dear friend and sister Roxanne talked about the census, because I've been on radio shows. I have participated in drives for voting, and just to remind our community what is the reason behind the census as it relates to resources and being counted in our communities and our children and their futures. And I am the founder of the Caribbean and American Global Business Connections. I did that for a reason and on purpose. I wanted to simply bridge the gap with Caribbeans and our global friends as we do business and as we network and just coexist here in Georgia. And it's been very successful because people were proud to say, I'm from here, I'm from there. But then what happened is you realize how we are contributing to the societies that we're in. And so here we are talking about voting, the most critical of them all since I've been in this country. I've been through 4 presidents, Republican and Democrats, but this is the one that I believe had everyone kind of thinking we've never seen anything quite like this. So I think it's very important. We have to remind the Caribbean community of their contributions, of what they pay into a system, a tax system, and how they must be counted, because we know it will go into our school systems, our household, and pretty much our well-being overall. That is simply put. There is no explaining more of that. So that's where we are.
Thank you, and that's beautifully said. Which part of Guyana are you from?
I am from Stewartville, West Coast, Demerara.
Okay, nice.
Yes.
And for viewers who have tuned in, we're expecting one more panelist, Council President John Mutuvaran in Schenectady, in northern New York. And tonight he's hosting a police reform meeting in his community to reform the Schenectady Police Department. And so community meetings, you can't always predict exactly when they'll end, but we're hoping that he'll join us when he can. But it really touches on the important role that Guyanese are playing throughout our city and throughout our state and our country. One of the biggest conversations that we've had this summer is the role of the police department in our lives and in our communities. And he, as council president, is the equivalent of the city council speaker in New York City, gets to oversee and gets to really lead a part of that conversation and to bring healing to his own city of Schenectady, where we know that a lot of Guyanese and some Trinidadians have made that their home. So please share our live link, send it to friends and family, share it to any groups that you're a part of on Facebook. We'd love to grow the audience for tonight's discussion. To start off, I want to start with Senator Prasad. How does Kamala's nomination make you feel? She is, as many people know, she's obviously a woman, but she's also West Indian. She's Jamaican. And her mother is from India, and not just Hindi India. She's from South India. She's from Tamil Nadu. So she brings this incredibly rich cultural heritage that could potentially be in the White House for the first time ever. How does this make you feel?
It makes me feel extremely proud. It reminded me of how the excitement we had with Hillary Clinton being the first woman actually on the major ticket. And when Kamala was running, we said, okay, she'd been the first and first and first in many instances. And so you had been proud of her throughout her career. And then she stepped onto the stage, the most global of stages that anyone can step onto and say, here I am, accept me for who I am. I am willing to move forward. I am willing to challenge the status quo in this country and say, I want to be the president of the United States. And so we all step back and say, whoa, okay. And she was not hesitant in her beliefs. She was not hesitant to confront anyone who challenged her. And we saw that on the stage. We saw that in everything that she had done so far. And so when she stepped back and then Joe Biden selected her as his running mate, she was, we all was behind her because we understood. That's not me, sorry. We all understood the importance as Caribbean people in elevating one of our own. Too often, we do not elevate our own. We say, oh, we tend to isolate people. Oh, she's Jamaican. Oh, she's just Indian. Oh, she's not Guyanese. Oh, she's not that. But right now we have to say, she's just one of us. She's from the minority community. She's of immigrant parentage, and she is one of us. If we're not willing to step up and support one of us, to elevate one of us to the highest office in the land, there is something wrong with all of us. So it's incumbent upon us to step up, support her candidacy, and elevate her to that status.
Wow. We really win with Kamala Harris because in a lot of ways, she's us. She's Indian, she's Caribbean, she's West Indian. And for this panel, she's a woman.
Yep.
And Senator Prasad, you've ran for office and you've been successful, but you understand what a lonely experience that can feel like. You understand what courage and compassion means. And so you're absolutely right. We have to be with her. We have this obligation. And the truth is that's a part of why we're doing this Zoom, this conversation, because it's so important to not just get this guy out of the White House, but to put somebody up there that elevates all of us.
A qualified person.
A qualified person.
Yeah.
And how does her nomination make you feel, Sabrina?
I am going to piggyback off her accent. It actually makes me feel the same. When it was first announced, obviously her ethnicity was the first thing you notice.
Yep.
And of course, her being of Indian descent, and all of us on the panel here are of that. And I love how Roxanne used the word in the minority, because it is what it is. That is what America says we are, unfortunately. I don't like the word, but I always believe in transcending beyond what that word means to America, because we don't know that word very well. Yet we are put into that box and we are being told, because of that group that they placed you in, you are not supposed to transcend and be a vice president of this country. So she stands for many things. She stands on the shoulders of Shirley Chisholm. She stands on the shoulders of so many other women. And I could be the next vice president of this country. So she stands for so many things and so many little girls that look just like her. And so for that by itself, I think speaks volume. And, this country loves to talk about record. Everybody has a record. All right. And this woman, look at her, the plethora of things she's accomplished. She obviously had something like this in mind, because if you look at the record that she had carried thus far, it tells you where exactly she probably is right now and where she should be. So it's such a broad topic, but overall, I know people says, well, you can't just vote because she's a woman. Of course you can. We've had so many doors to break down and we're still breaking them down. So she's going to break that one down.
Yep.
And, I say this and I'm smiling because when you said that, I began looking at Denise, where in Trinidad, they had a woman prime minister, and
Yep.
her name happened to also be Kamala. And
Yep.
and so it's, we come from a place and a culture where women have always played leadership roles. We come from places and cultures where it's not unusual for a woman to be the head of anything.
That's
It's
right.
actually incredibly normal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
President of Finland, it's a woman, she's 37.
Yep.
So we're everywhere. So get used to it, Americans. Just get used to it.
So, Kamala's heritage brings a lot of pride, but at the end of the day, we're voting for Biden as vice president, and she makes this decision a lot easier, certainly for me, because I want to see a balanced ticket, and it's in the history of this country, we've never had a woman as even vice president or as president. It's so long overdue, and Senator Prasad said it right. I was as excited when Hillary was nominated. This is a historic moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Right at home.
Well, for me,
Yes.
it's being a Hindu, being a progressive woman that I am, and knowing the struggles, being a woman, trying to get in it, to fight is a little bit harder in a man's world. And with her, she also has that rich cultural background that will push her to be who she is. And as vice president, she has that bureaucratic and she has that progressive skills that President Biden will need. He will need to have that backbone. And then if push comes to shove and she has to be the president, then she has all that is needed and necessary. And we all know in all our households, who's the nurturer? Who takes care of the household? Who takes care of the children of the home? So what's any different for a woman to take care of the children of the nation, the business of the nation, and things of the nation? So having a woman is not just because she's a woman, it's because women know how to take care of a home. So if you can take care of a home and your kids and be able to balance all of that, then being able to run a country is just like running a home. You just have millions of children instead. But she has what it takes, not just to balance Mr. Biden, but to bring to the Democratic Party and to just overall bring her culture, her personality, her womanness, and her personality to fill every aspect of the entire slate.
Thank you. And that's absolutely correct. Women play leadership roles in our homes and and in our communities. And look at all of you. I mean, this panel is led by women. What is it? And let's start again with you, Denise, in our swing state of Florida. What is it about the Biden-Harris campaign? What is it about their promises? Which one stands out to you the most? If you had to pick one that's motivating you to support this campaign?
It's the immigration. The immigration reforms need to be a little bit better. The naturalization process before was, you got a green card in 5 years, you apply for your citizenship. Now it is 2-year temporary green card, and then now you have to wait 18 months to get an answer when is your next interview for the permanent green card. And they do have the option where they can extend it a little bit longer. So technically your 2-year wait plus 18 months, that's like a 5-year wait just to get your green card. So it's extended even longer. And that was never the process before. So for me, it's just to get the naturalization process a little bit better, quicker, faster, and an easier way. And also same with handling the immigration, not because you get a ticket means, okay, time to deport you. No, can you do a little bit more background? Let's see what it is. Is it first offense? Rather than having the first, like we've had in the past, where you pulled off the bus, do you have your citizenship? No, boom, you're deported. These things need to have a little bit more due process. And the Biden administration seems to have a better take on how to handle it and what they're promising. And we really hope that the promise do come true.
Thank you. And for Sabrina, what's the most important promise for you when you say immigrants hers?
Yeah, I would go with the Affordable Care Act because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Obviously, immigration is there, but for me, the Affordable Care Act, it's being threatened right now for the most silliest reasons, and we know why. And so his pledge to make sure that continues and make it better, and is what really I am mostly concerned with because of what's happening with this entire country and the handling of the pandemic, the pre-existing conditions. So that is near and dear to my heart. I know people who have suffered. I've actually helped people get on that act, believe it or not. I have a dear friend, and when he told me, hey, Sabrina, if you know anyone, I've had ex-military people with no insurance get that, and they're still on it. So I've been helping people behind the scenes. Hey, call my guy Humphreys. He's going to help you. And they're on it because of that. So that will tremendously be a hit to this entire country. It has nothing to do with party, but with the livelihood of the citizens of this country.
I really appreciate you saying that. One of the frustrations that I felt is a president and an administration that's attacked Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, but has not put forward a single alternative.
Nope.
And 4 years in office is campaigning on no healthcare plan or promise. And so it's one thing to attack something when you're campaigning. He's had 4 years to replace it with something better, and he's come up with zero. And so we have to hold this administration accountable for that. Senator Prasad, and I assume that there, as a legislator, there's so many things that you have, that you're waiting for. What is it that Biden-Harris promises for you, the campaign?
For me also, it's the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act, the Supreme Court, immigration. We've seen what this president is capable of doing and what his party is willing to do. The things. Remember, when the Affordable Care Act was passed, the members of the Republican Party said it was their mission to break it and to ensure that the President Obama was only a one-term president, and they wanted to dismantle Obama, as they call it, Obamacare. It's amazing how many people will say, "Oh, we need to dismantle Obamacare. It's no good." And you say, "Well, what do you have?" And they say, "I have the Affordable Care Act." And it's like, do you understand it's the same thing?
Yeah.
They really don't.
No.
They really don't. And then the president goes into Walter Reed, and he talks about Obamacare is like a socialist medical system. He fails to tell people the services he received, it's government-sponsored healthcare, is Obamacare. Right? They're not talking. People are not willing to speak about that. But healthcare is so critical. And when a person who is the president, who's supposed to be representing the entire nation, is willing to sacrifice citizens of this nation because you hated someone, that's all it comes down to.
Yes.
It's time for that person to go.
Yes.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as my congressman Greg Meeks here in New York, he says this guy's living in public housing, and we got to evict him. We got to serve him that notice. And millions of New Yorkers are lining up. Millions of people in Georgia are lining up, and in Florida, we don't know what they're going to do, but I hope that they're lining up to evict this president from public housing. I want to I absolutely agree with that. I think healthcare is incredibly important. I think immigration is incredibly important in this administration, and it's part of why I'm supporting Biden and Harris as well. But I live in New York City, and a part of me, and I supported Hillary when she ran for president, but a part of me felt like, all right, well, this guy's terrible, but at least he's from New York. Maybe he'll do something for New York City. Maybe he'll send some money for our subways. Maybe he'll send something for housing to drive the golden goose. To If New York is successful, this country is successful because we send more tax revenues to the federal government than any other city, and probably the second after California for states.
Right? Thank you.
As a New Yorker, as someone who rides the subway every single day, as someone who sees how important our infrastructure is, it's really, really not just disappointing, but it hits home. And it gets me upset when I see other New York City residents tell me, I'm not sure about Biden. Well, what has he done for New York City? He's a New Yorker. Well, he abandoned us, but in so many ways, but his home is now Florida. He's abandoned New York City, and we need support. We needed help. And so I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that a Biden-Harris administration will provide funding for an expanded MTA and public transit here in New York City. We need the support.
I think a Biden-Harris, for me, the Biden-Harris ticket looks at the entire country, and it's not about party. The Biden-Harris ticket, it's not a spiteful group of people. The Biden-Harris ticket is not going to come after Richard Davis because Richard Davis says, I don't like you, Joe Biden. So he's not going to come after you and take away everything from you. That's not what they're about. They're about being leaders. They're about making sure they do what is best for the American people. That's what this is about. It's not being spiteful and saying, oh, you want to take my name off of a building? I'm going to get back at you. Oh, you said you didn't like me. You mentioned me in a book. I'm going to get back. So I'm going to take away funding from New York. I'm going to cut funding for NYCHA. I'm going to cut funding for mass transit. I'm going to cut funding for social services. We have sent so many letters to the federal government during this COVID period, asking for support for various reasons. The federal government is not willing to do it, all because we have the name of our state is New York. That's all it is. And because they're the hatred for New York, because New York doesn't go along with what they're about, they mean to punish us. And we have to make sure we do what's right as New Yorkers.
It certainly felt like being punished during COVID. It certainly felt like being punished with so many crises that, and the president seems to frankly only care about the states that voted for him. That's a really disappointing thing when you look at forest fires in California and other national tragedies. When you look at the hurricane that hit Puerto Rico, and so this really does. There are common threads with this president, and I see we have a comment and a question here from Ashok Ramsaran in our Zoom chat, and it's related. He's talking about the CARES Act. Senator Prasad, how much do we need the CARES Act to pass in the next administration or after this presidential election to help New York revitalize and to help city agencies and municipalities around the state recover?
We desperately need it. If we don't, we're looking at cutting, the first thing that goes on the cutting block is social services. We have food insecurity like never before. We have homeowners who are unable to pay the mortgages because they're out of jobs. We have renters who haven't paid rent for 7 months, right? They're out of jobs. They're not receiving benefits, so they're unable to afford anything. We need to ensure that the federal government is sending us that money. We're looking, the transit system is talking, they may have to increase the cost of for riders. No one can afford those things. So we need the federal government to supplement what we have. We're going back into the new fiscal year, $25 billion in the hole, these kinds of things we're looking at. New York City has no money. When you're talking about laying off when you're begging people to retire early so that they can get off of the active payroll, these are the reasons why we need the federal government to authorize CARES 2. States should not be suffering. The United States of America, which purports to be the richest country, we call ourselves the most progressive country in the world. Our current president talks negatively about all the other countries, but look at what the other countries are doing for their citizens during this time. They are making sure they are taking care of the needs of those desperately in need. They are not just giving handouts. The PPPs, the loans for small businesses, who got it? The small businesses weren't able to get the money the way they should. Friends of the president and his cronies, they were the ones getting it. And so the CARES 2 has to be authorized. Otherwise, our small businesses, who are the lifeline of our communities, are going to be gone. Our healthcare system is going to be totally shattered. Our education system, our transportation system. Remember, New York City had to shut down overnight transit systems. It's never been done. We're New Yorkers. We're accustomed to being able to take public transportation at any time. Those are the things we need them to. Why would we need them to authorize CARES 2?
Thank you. And you also touched on, I'm going to say this, Guyanese and Trinidadian people like land and house. Everybody has a land. Everybody has, it's the American dream. And landlords and tenants are suffering. And so we need federal assistance from DC also to help with stemming a potential foreclosure crisis.
Right.
Sabrina, in Georgia, are these issues that your neighbors are talking about? What are the top issues for people that you talk to in Georgia? What do they care about?
Well, first of all, I know our schools, the kids going back to school and the virtual option, unemployment, pretty much the same. And even though this is as he calls it, you've got the Democratic states and the Republican states, there are some people here who are suffering in those areas with childcare, with unemployment, businesses closing down. The big businesses we know got that PPP money. I actually help some people fill out the forms. My income bracket is not like some of them, but I was able to help them, show them how to receive some of that stuff. I think because of the pandemic too, we've got that all piled into this, and that is compounded the hurt, if you will, because now you can't go out and make money to support your family. You're afraid to send your children to school. You have to stay home with them. How are you earning money for the ones who don't have the virtual capability? So it's a compounded problem for these citizens here. And I have always been outspoken with my platform in radio and just the public things I do. I have great friends there at the House and the Senate, and I always like to stay involved so I can share things like this so people can understand where they fit in and how they can actually remain a part of the process and know where to go and get help. So it's like no one is bigger than one. They're all just coming at our folks here. I'm a businesswoman. I'm self-sufficient. That's not everybody. I don't have anyone in school, so I couldn't relate to that. I don't, I work in the film industry and I've got some, but I was also excluded from some because I was told, oh, I didn't make this, I can't get that. And I know what I've put into the system. So we all were being dispersed in these sects and these groups. And you're going, but I know I did this. I know I work. What do you mean? I had to make this. So it's so much mentally and just trying to remain sane. Right now, we have some groups, I'm sorry, not group, but counties are supposed to go back and send these kids to school. Then you have some folks who want to go and send their kids back to school. And so those two groups of people are protesting. But here's the thing. When the leader of your country comes with discord in everything from racial to socioeconomic distribution. You have people are so confused, and then some are on the bandwagon, not realizing the general population, which is the largest population, that are being affected. Let's call it what it is. Because the ones at the top 5% are okay regardless.
Yep.
So it's so compounded. It takes prayer and community. I will say a lot of people have given. They would come and say, hey, we will come and help with your restaurant. And even some of the restaurants say, hey, I've got excess food. And so I'm on lots of conference calls and reminding people to go get food. I'll just share it. I didn't even know I was on list, and I just didn't ask, who is this? I just forwarded it, because you never know who that can help.
Yep.
So it's so much.
I appreciate that. And you know, we're also a community that has a lot of small business owners. We're a community of entrepreneurs. And I love that you challenge this myth that small business owners or the middle class or folks who are doing okay are somehow automatically Republican. That's that is entirely false.
No.
And it's actually, you know, the 1% and 2% of this country that has that seems to have this automatic obligation because they benefit repeatedly.
Yes.
I want to come back to something that Denise mentioned about looking forward to immigration reform under a Biden-Harris administration. Americans are watching this. Guyanese, Trinidadians are watching this. Fresh in our memory is Barack Obama, who deported more immigrants than any other president. We're looking at this administration as one who has demonized immigrant communities and brown and Black immigrant communities more than anyone else. And Mohammed Q. Amin on Facebook, he's just shared this, and I want to read it out. Trump administration has issued more than 400 executive actions that dramatically reshape our immigration system. As we continue to grapple with COVID-19, Trump announced on April 20th that he would sign an executive order to suspend immigration to the United States. This administration continues to vilify this community, and he's a president that came into office saying that he would help the dreamers, that he would help the DACA recipients who got assistance under the Obama administration. He has not fulfilled any of those promises. What is it about the Biden-Harris immigration plan that gives you hope?
Well, for me, I think we suffered here in Florida a lot with the immigration from Biden come all the way down with the deportation. You're being stopped in every corner, even if you're got a ticket. The first thing they check was, where's your green card? Where's your status? And then you're just taken to ICE detention center, not too far away here in Miami. And that is something that the immigrants here are living in fear. Here you have to take public transportation because Florida is a driving state. So you are in such fear of being pulled over and deported, ripped away from your families, and then just sent back to a country that you left so long ago that you're dispersed and don't even know, your own country that you're born in. So a lot of Florida immigrants worry about that. And when they do make that move to get the naturalization, then you have to go through all the red tapes to, first it's a 2-year, and then you must have a partner that you marry that has that certain income bracket. If not, you have to get a co-sponsor. And then after that, you get a green card only for 2 years on a temporary basis. You have to then come back for a second interview. Those are things that were never done before. I mean, when I got mine, we didn't have to do those. And many people, so this is one thing here. In addition, October 1st, all the costs, processing fees, immigration, naturalization increased, not just like $100, $50, no, hundreds of dollars. So now instead of paying, you already don't have much of an income. Now you have to find more money to be able to get all these documentation. And then usually, like, let's say, okay, you marry a citizen, and that citizen already has a passport and has the paperwork. Now they want 4 or 5 different documentations to prove that you're a citizen. So these are all bureaucratic red tape to just delay the process, and that keeping them in that immigration status where they're now still in jeopardy to be deported. I mean, this is the biggest fear here in South Florida because of the public transportation and because of the high cost of getting the naturalization. And then now the bracket income of your spouse must be at this level. Anything below, you have to get a co-sponsor. And these are some of the issues that our immigrants are suffering. And then on top of that, now unemployment. Due to COVID, a lot of the immigrants did not have, most of them don't have a job anymore. And then you have, they're doing the food drive. Come pick up this food, we'll throw it in your trunk. You don't have to get out. But what happened when they don't have a car? They don't have a job, they don't have a car, they don't have means of transportation. So how are the ones who really, really needed the help during COVID to get those hampers didn't get any here in Florida? I did see Mr. Davis going to seniors' house and people's house and hand delivering that, but we didn't have any of that here in Florida. So the immigrants really, really felt the brunt for this COVID in many ways, in different aspects.
I really, I live in Queens, New York, and I like when you painted this picture of what daily life is like in Florida for an immigrant who has to get by, because sometimes we have a hard time. They call this the bubble. Sometimes it's hard to understand why other communities make the decisions they do in far off places, and you're really painting a very I think vivid picture of what the daily life is for someone who may or may not be undocumented, but is perpetually looked at with this lens, and is probably carrying around a lot of fear. What if I'm stopped? What if I'm pulled over? I remember during this administration, there are these rumors. People love to spread rumors, right? Rumors aguan, right? That song. So they were saying that there are immigration raids, ICE raids on roti shops. And I don't live far from Liberty Avenue, and that's the heart of the Guyanese, Trinidadian, and largely Punjabi community here in Queens and in New York. I remember at midnight, I had to go to several of our most popular roti shops to reassure their workers that it's okay, they can go to work tomorrow, that they can actually send their kids to school, and that they can go and be nannies and babysitters and all of the careers that they have to do to survive. This has been a traumatizing administration for communities of color, for immigrants, for Guyanese. And one of the Republican talking points is they'll say, and I think they're right about this, Trump hasn't started new wars. That's true. He's been tough on the Chinese Communist Party. That's true. But I think the accomplishments really end there. When you look at tax policy, this president passed a sweeping tax reform. Has it helped you, Sabrina?
No, it's funny you said that. And I'll just say something before I answer that, because yes, he didn't have any issues with creating a war, if you will, but he's created a war with his own citizens of this United States of America. We feel like we're in a war with him. So let's call that what it is. So if you can protect your own and show us love and show us unity, then, I'm supposed to give you a pat on the back because we didn't have issues with our allies and on the folks who are looking at us all crazy and our enemies. Listen, at the end of the day, as he stated, he comes in as a businessman. He's not a politician, but yet you're not even opening your heart to understanding the role of the presidency, because you're quick to say, I'm not a politician, but you're worse than a politician, because we've never seen anything quite like this. And 400 and something thousand, that's not the 95 percenters of this country. That's who it benefits, the folks above there. And so for me, no, it did not. I mean, progressive businesses, as you saw, benefited from the PPP. So, I mean, we're talking that caliber of folks, not the folks who are struggling day to day, all right? Not the folks that own businesses. We're talking families here. So it benefits big business like they always have. Let's call it what it is. So you're picking fight with your own. That's what you're picking fight with. You can't even set the example for the country. You have the whole country in discord, racial unrest. You can't speak and say, listen, as a leader, people are going to listen to me. Let me set that example. But instead, you've brought on added baggage. You've got all these communities, you know, in disarray because there's no proper leadership. And you're talking about immigration for one set of people. This country has a lot of immigrants, including your wife, okay? So we can go to Sheepshead Bay, Bensonhurst. Hello, that's another group of immigrants. Yet they're not placed the same way, in the same manner, and treated the same way. You go to the Caribbeans, you go to the Haitian community, you go to all these other groups, the other Hispanic groups, and all of these smaller groups, and yet the country seems to forget it's a country of immigrants. That's what it is. This is not your country. And yet you can't serve us all lawfully and just give us what you said, well, not what you said, but what your country was built on, and exercise those rights, those basic rights for people. So yes, we want it to be changed. I've gone through Republican presidents. Never have we felt we had to come on here and state a case. When whomever won, they all came together and we make do with what we had. This doesn't seem that way. It seems we have to fight even more. And so of course, one of the biggest communities, which is what we represent, ought to know that and ought to know what that means for them and the future of their children, and to be citizens of this country and residents of this country. And we should demand it. We pay into it, so we should demand it. And so we will have to just come together and make our voices heard on November 3rd.
Thank you. Thank you. And even now, but the last day to vote is November 3rd. And if you're watching this on Facebook or here with us on Zoom, please share the video. Please get others to participate as well. And we're going to be taking a few more audience questions. For Senator Prasad, you know, I don't know if this is too personal, but has Trump's tax plan helped you? Or has it negatively impacted you, meaning you're paying more taxes than you have before? And then going to what Sabrina touched on, why is this country so racially divided today more than it's probably been since the 1960s?
Well, the tax plan, first of all, harmed most homeowners because you're unable to make your SALT deductions and all of that. And so we're in no way have we benefited from it. You know, in New York State, we tried to circumvent that law, and then, you know, the courts have not allowed us to do those kinds of things, to allow people to do charitable deductions for their taxes, but they did not allow us to do that. As far as the racial divide, I think the people who are standing up now and showing their true colors felt that way all along. All along. The only difference is the President of the United States, when he stepped up and did it, it emboldened them to do it. They said, if the President of the United States can stand up and talk what he says and say the things that he's saying, then why not me? Why not me? And let's talk about it. In our own communities, we've been going through this prior to the president. Yeah. And in our own communities, the president has emboldened the people in our communities to really do it. You just have to, you know, the president loves to use social media, particularly Twitter, to push, to feed his negativity. And we're seeing people in our communities using social media to feed their own negativity. We're talking, you know, we're all immigrants. So when you're bashing your immigrant community, It's a reflection of you. It's a reflection of you. You're not better than anyone else because you own 2 businesses, you own 2 homes. You know what? The people that you're bashing on social media are the people who are selling in your stores, the people who are your gardeners, the people who are taking care of your sick relative in your home, the people who are your babysitters. And that's what people are not acknowledging. You know, they want to walk around and say, oh, you know, I have this and I have that. And it's okay to speak negatively of your own, but it's not okay. And the president of the United States gave them that ammunition when he stepped out and he said, you know, the people, listen, no one is born a bigot, right? No one is born a bigot, but it's the environment you're in. And so even though Donald Trump comes out and is saying all of these things, the people who are stepping out now, if they were not like that all along, would not be doing it. They would say it's wrong. Anyone who has any sense of decency, any person who has any sense of humanity would have said it's wrong. They would not be emulating what he is doing. And so it's been in them all along.
I appreciate that answer. And you know, starting with the racial divide, we are so polarized today, and I think it started with his slogan, "Make America Great Again," because we know that for generations, minority communities, and I don't have to say minority communities, Black Americans have been, it hasn't been great for them. For women, it hasn't been great for them. These are for LGBTQ members and that community, it hasn't been great for them. People are finally getting to a place of equality or a semblance of normalcy in this country, and you're talking about returning to a time where these people didn't have rights. So just in that slogan, I think a lot of people saw it and we knew what it meant. It wasn't for us.
No.
For Denise, in your circumstance, you know, Republicans will tell us that the fiscal deficit is massive. It's actually the largest it's ever been under this president right now. And this is not because of COVID that made it worse. It's because of the Trump tax cuts. Have these tax cuts helped you and homeowners in Florida? And why do you think our country is so racially divided and polarized that we are literally on the streets protesting like we haven't in a long time?
Like Roxanne said, it's embedded inside, right? And with culture and education and socializing and being diverse, it gets subsided inside and gets dormant, put to sleep. But when you come now and you invoke it and bring it to life, then all that negativity and that little demon that was hiding inside comes out to bring the racism and take the ancestral rage that we have accepted and put away has now exploded. And it's out where all the psychological and emotional trauma from everything in the past, from the ancestors going all the way back, has just exploded and causing all of this. So now we need, again, a nurturer to say it's okay. All of this is okay. We need to change this now. We need a new administration to say, let's put that away now. We're civilized and we're diverse people. And that was the past. Let's put it away, but let's fix it as we go along. And certain things like making the racial slurs and going into a restaurant and saying, I don't want you to serve me because you're not the right cup. All of that is irrelevant and it shouldn't be. And with a new administration, it will calm all of that down. Because how is Harris going to be racist? How is she going to be racist? She's a mix of cultures and she's a woman. So she really identifies with all of us in minority ways. And in the working class and in the poor class. It doesn't matter. She covers the entire sector. So she would pacify that. Here in Florida, with the COVID and even before the COVID, we're getting a lot of foreclosures. And Sabrina was talking about the small businesses. Let's even jump into the nonprofit. In this administration, we didn't get funding for next year and the year before. Nonprofits did not get any funding. We had to figure out how to survive by ourselves, right? So, and then the PPPE, nonprofits, I got rejected. I got rejected because I was a small nonprofit. So I didn't get anything. So then the county decided, well, hey, you're nonprofit and you're small. Let's throw you a bone. Here's $2,500. Make that work for 4 months.
Yeah.
You understand? So in the world of the oligarchy world that we live in, certain businesses and certain levels are taken care of, whereas the other levels are fish out of water. We have to figure it out. This is where we are. Why is it not an escape route or a safety net is the word I'm looking for, a safety net that would take care of all of us.
Yeah.
So hopefully with a new administration, every single one of us would have that safety net, a safety net that will take care of us how we need to be taken care of, and not this section is taken care of, this one is thrown aside, and this one, well, we'll think about what to do. Everybody needs to be taken care of the right way.
I appreciate that, and you're so right. I think there's so much divide, there's so much anger. We need an administration with leaders that are going to bring a healing touch to this country.
Healing,
so
that's the word.
Angry, that is so hurting, that has gone through loss like we have never experienced.
Yeah.
It's an incredible time. And so I fully agree with you. As we approach the close of this program, it's approaching the 1 hour mark. I want to get a question in from Alan Raghunath, who's here on Zoom with us. And it's for anyone on the panel. Alan asks, any thoughts on the critique that Harris has been receiving on her record with criminal justice? Critics argue it's not aligned to her democratic views. Senator Prasad, I'm sure you've heard her record.
You hear that all the time. People have to remember, she didn't make the law. She was just administering the law. And and that's what her role was. And when she was no longer in that role, she worked to change the law. But the people who are saying that there are people, no matter what you do, they are going to criticize. They're going to criticize. If you sneeze loudly, they're going to criticize, because you sneeze loudly. But she did not make the law. It was her duty to administer the law, and that's what she did. That's the bottom line. And it's with all of us to work to make sure we're changing what we see as injustices in the law.
Thank you. And so what are you doing in your state, in your respective states, in your respective capacities? What are you seeing about voting trends and patterns? Let's start with Georgia. How are you getting the word out among your neighbors, Guyanese, Caribbean folks, to vote and to hopefully vote for Biden-Harris? Sabrina?
Well, first of all, I've always spoken out. Again, I'll come back to the census and voting. It's nothing new. So even though I might not be on air, I still have media platforms. I post things. I have colleagues still in radio. I will share information. I have colleagues who are judges and lawyers, especially with moratorium, with eviction. I've been in that area in my corporate world. So all of these things, again, encompasses everything that we have to deal with on a daily basis, which comes down to voting, because people seems to think that only when it's the president is being elected again is when they vote. But what they fail to realize is the local government, which really will affect you for the remainder of your life. And you need to pay attention to those people who are placed there, like your judges and so on. They make those decisions with the communities that you are a part of, which we see are in disarray right now. So it's also reminding them of the local portion of this and state of this election and what we will have before us after, whether he comes back or he goes, which, you know, so I always try to remind them and just educate them, you know, when I go on air or if I'm posting things, some people will message me, hey, Sabrina, how should I vote? And I'll say, hey, I'll text you something, because they don't know. They don't know what some of these people have done. They don't know who is who because they're not out there. They're not listening to radio like I am. I listen to it all. Some of it I can't take, but you have to muster it up so you can deliver it to someone in layman terms so they understand the reason for voting. So I try best I can. Most people know I'm Guyanese. Oh, she always got the Guyanese flag on. I said, but I'm a citizen and I've been voting as long as I can remember. And so I just want them to also know that you are in this country now. You come here for whatever reason. Most of us come for almost the same reason. And you must be counted. And then do your part as productive member of society. And so I'm always excited about this time. I couldn't go door knocking this time for obvious reasons. And I also couldn't even go, I wanted to volunteer, but my husband is high risk, so I have to think about him. But I did what I can virtually. I just remind people to go out and vote.
Thank you. And you know, I'm so glad that we were able to get your participation here.
Thank you.
And because Georgia is so important, and I appreciate all the work you're doing to mobilize Guyanese, Trinidadian, Caribbean, just voters in Georgia.
And tomorrow is our last day to early vote as well.
So y'all, if anyone's in Georgia, you got family and friends, if you're watching this, we know people, I know we know people in Florida.
Yeah.
You know people in any of the swing states, Pennsylvania, Georgia, make sure they participate and make sure they come out and support Biden-Harris, because as we've tried to articulate and lay out for you tonight, there really are very few reasons to support this current administration. There are very few, if any, symbols of progress that are for this community or any community. I'm gonna go to Denise. What are you seeing in Florida about voting trends, and what are you doing to get the word out among Indo-Caribbean voters there and other communities that you work with closely?
Here in Florida, we're seeing great growth. 51% of early voting took place. And in our Indo-Caribbean community, I was very proud to see a lot of people went to vote and put up their sticker, put up that they're voting. Hey, I did my civic duty. It was very refreshing to see that, knowing that most of them, they don't even care to vote. And Sabrina is correct when it comes to local voting. They only care about the major president election. But what happened to our local, to vote our mayors in and our commissioners, our senators and state representatives? We have to get them in because they also represent us and they're the ones who are going to work for us on a local level. So it's important to vote no matter what. And I mean, the number one thing when you ask them, so why are you not voting? Oh, the lines are too long. Okay. But guess what? You can't make that excuse this time because you can mail in your vote. You could go in how many weeks before and vote. There's no line here. The line is probably like 20 minutes to half an hour now. So you have no excuses. So a lot of them did indeed go out to vote, which has been really good. My thing is just to be progressive, to tell people to go out and vote. Doesn't matter who you want to support. That's fine. But the point is to go out and vote. Make that vote count. Go out there and get your voice heard. Doesn't matter who you vote for, just vote. Preferably Biden-Harris, but if not, whoever your choice is. The point is to go out and vote. It is our civic duty. And as Americans, that's what we're supposed to do. And even if you were in your country, Guyana, Trinidad, Jamaica, Suriname, wherever, you still have to vote in your country. So what's the difference here? Get out there and vote, and you make your vote count. That's basically what it is.
Thank you. I love that example because sometimes I think we forget that we come from democracies.
Yeah.
We don't come from dictatorships. We come from a tradition of voting, and so we got to keep it up here. Senator Prasad, I'm not going to ask you that question because I know what you're doing in New York. I have a different question to ask you that I didn't share with you ahead of time, and it wasn't intentional. But I sort of been reflecting, and I want to ask you, how do we get and support more Guyanese Trinidadians to run for public office in places everywhere, but in places like Georgia, where Sabrina is, or in places like Florida, where Denise is, because we don't have enough of our people in office in these places, or even running for office in these places. How do we change that?
Well, it starts with the individuals. It's not about supporting them for running for office. You can't just step out and say, I want to run for office when you have not been doing anything in your community. You has to be that you have been working in the community. You know, that's where it starts. That's where it starts. And you have to be, don't step out and just because you want to, you want to benefit from something and say, you want to have a title behind your name and then soon you step up. That's not how it works. You have to done the legwork and helped to make your community better. The Caribbean community needs to step up. Too often they sit back and say, oh, I don't want to get involved in politics. But politics is involved in everything that you do, everything that you're a part of. So if you want to run for office, the time is now for you to step up and start taking care of your community. I tell the young people, you start early. You can join the community board at the age of 16. Start going to your precinct councils. You start being involved. Start cleanup drives. People will see what you're doing to benefit your community. Don't wait until you're older and says, well, I've seen Johnny. He was a senator, and I want to be a senator. And you say, well, what have you done for the community? All it comes back to is, what have you done for the community? People will support you when you've been working in the best interest of your community. That's the bottom line. Work in the best interest of the community, and we'll come out and support you.
Richard, let me jump in on that.
Sure.
For our Indo-Caribbean community, the first thing you'll hear from parents is make sure you enter the doctor and lawyer.
Doctor, lawyer.
Yes.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No,
nothing's wrong with that. But then, how many doctors, nurses, lawyers, and stuff are going to have? You will never hear them say, run for public office, or why don't you be a district leader or a state representative or a senator? You don't get that support from an Indo-Caribbean community to say, hey, daughter or son, why don't you run for office? You don't get that. First thing is politics, you need to stay away because you don't know how you're just going to affect you, and you don't know how people will hate you, right? So
but
this is what you get.
I think younger people are starting to understand the difference now. They're starting to understand.
Right. So now it is to encourage the college kids and the high school kids for community service. Come out and help do this. Come out and help to serve on a board. Learn how to write a minutes. Learn how to be a treasurer. Learn how to be a vice president. So it's about, I've been encouraging people to serve on nonprofit board. Come out and be a part of a board as a 19-year-old and as a 16-year-old, and come and start from an early age to learn how to be a leader, and to also learn, even if not to be a leader, to also get that experience to then take further into life. Because you never know when you get older in your 20s and 30s, if you decide you want to run a nonprofit or participate in a nonprofit or be a part of your HOA, your homeowners association board of directors. Start from a young age, and then that's the only way you will know it's for you. So I started off with business, and because I was in New York with the Rajkumari Center for so many years doing nonprofit, that my life turned into nonprofit, the degree turned into nonprofit, certification become nonprofit consultant. That's how all of that, from just serving as a Rajkumari Cultural Center nonprofit, is what became my life. But the key to it is inside here. You gotta have a passion. You gotta have a passion to care for people, to fight for injustice and be an activist. When you have that fight, that passion and that drive, then you're riding in the right direction.
Can I just say one thing on that too, as it relates to service? Sometimes it takes personal tragedy. You didn't have to have experience sometimes in politics or even in community. I'll give you an example as you all are talking about that. Two people comes to mind. One, Mary Macbeth, if you recall, her son Jordan was shot. He had his music turned up loud. Well, why did you think she ran? She was not in
She
like that
ran because of that, yeah.
for her son and to change the gun laws. Mr. Astronaut, Mark Kelly, he's running in Arizona to what is that? Mr. McCain, his seat, I believe. That man had no desire in that because again, Denise and Roxanne talked about something happened, something tugged at your heart, and something made you say, you know what? I have to jump in this race. I have to go and speak for the folks who are voiceless and can't speak for themselves. I am actually like that. I'm thinking of getting into something because of what I'm seeing, because I've had, some experience on the speaking circuit, but I know I've always given, and people are always say, you should run, you should run. I've been given an award from the House of Representatives. And I think when it's the time, it will tell me to go on and run. So sometimes it takes personal tragedies for you to just jump in and be the voice for the voiceless.
Yeah.
And especially here in Florida, where our Indo-Caribbean community are the minorities in the minority, in order to get out there and to know who we are, you have to get out there. You have to get with the politician and say, excuse me, I run an Indo-Caribbean organization. You understand? Just to get them to say, well, what's Indo-Caribbean?
That's the question.
Okay.
We're at the 1 hour mark, and I just want to make sure that we stay close to in the time we've allotted. You've been an incredible. I think this has been a really, really helpful conversation. I think thinking about just people running. I got involved in local politics in Queens when Barack Obama ran for office. And Hillary. I was so motivated by that campaign. If there are people who are watching this, young people or people of any age, we realize how much we have to lose under this administration. This is the time to get involved and to mobilize and to fight for what you think your vision of your community is. This is the time. And I'm hoping that Guyanese, Trinidadians, Indo-Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean, however you define yourself, you find a reason to run for office, because we need better representation and we need to be represented in public office. It shouldn't have been this hard to find a panel nationally of Guyanese and Trinidadian leaders who are involved in states outside of New York. But I'm really glad that you all participated, and I applaud your leadership. And Sabrina, I hope you run. The last day to vote is the last day to vote. There are plenty of opportunities before that. Is Tuesday, November 3rd. Tuesday, November 3rd. Please, if you're watching this, call your friends and family. If they're in Florida or another swing state, Pennsylvania even, we need as many people to go out and vote. And we need to end this administration that's brought so much hardship to communities across this country. We need Biden and Harris. We need a healing touch. We need them in office in January. All right, Senator Prasad?
Yes, we definitely do. We definitely do. It's not just about someone says, oh, you're only talking about Kamala Harris and you're not talking about Joe Biden. That's not it. We're highlighting the importance and what Kamala Harris brings to the ticket. That's what we're doing. We're showing as women that we are proud that a woman can be elevated to the level that she's been elevated to. That's what we're doing. Joe Biden will be the unifier that this country needs. Joe Biden is tested, and he has the scars to show that what he has done. That's why I am supporting Joe Biden. Joe Biden, he helped Detroit to become back. He helped the Obama administration. He's been there. He has what it takes. He has the temperament of a leader on the national and global stage. He's not the leader who's going to push aside another international leader so that he can get to the front of a picture. That's not what Joe Biden is about. Joe Biden is not going to stand there and ridicule people with disabilities. He's not going to blame Gold Star families for giving him COVID, right? That's not what Joe Biden is going to do. Joe Biden is not going to sit back and say, well, New York, because you didn't support me, or, because you said ill things about me, I am making sure all of your funding is cut. That's not what Joe Biden is going to do. Joe Biden is going to work to ensure that America gets back to the standard, on the world stage that it should be. The world is mocking us right now because of who our leader is. We need to change that. And that's what Joe Biden brings to the ticket. That's what Joe Biden did when he selected Kamala Harris as his running mate. He saw that she can change the conversation across the country. Let people turn away from the negativity that has become the mantra for America.
Thank you, Senator Prasad, on those for those final words. And you were beginning to cut out there, but Senator Prasad got the final word. Please go out and vote. Vote safely. With Diwali, Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays coming, please continue to wear your masks and stay away from large crowds and even family, because we're seeing that COVID cases are at their highest level since June. So please be cautious. Please go out and vote. And please, if you're not convinced about Biden-Harris, please reach out to any of us. I'm incredibly accessible. I'd love to continue to make the case with each of you. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your
know
night.
what leadership is. If your definition is leadership is not what you're seeing.
It's not. Yeah.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Sabrina.
Well, thank you, Roxanne.
Bye.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Denise. Thanks, Sabrina. Thanks, Richard.
Great conversation. Let's have some more.
Yep.